What's up, English teachers? It's Emilio here, and today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the differences between teaching for courses and teaching as an English private teacher or teaching as an English tutor. I've done both, and I've been teaching right now for 7 years, almost getting to 8 years. I never know exactly, but that's around it. And throughout these years, I've noticed the differences between these two different ways of teaching, the benefits of each, the downsides, and the fact is that both are part of our lives, both are very interesting for us to have the experience. And in the beginning, so to begin, I'm going to start telling you a little bit of my story. I was a student in an English course, a very famous one here in Brazil, one of the most famous, I guess. And for 5 years, I guess, I studied in that course. My teacher was the coordinator of the school. And on my last semester, I remember that he invited me to teach with him. Actually, I told him that I was interested in teaching, and he said, "Oh, you want to teach? So that's great." So for 1 month, I guess, he trained me on the school methodology and he gave me a lot of tips. I think we had like 4 meetings in which he would talk to me about the dynamics of an English class. Uh, Quick tips, but very valuable tips. And I remember that I graduated in the 10th book in one semester, and on the next semester I was teaching the 10th book, and that was really crazy. But and I so I taught in that school for one semester, and after the first semester I was invited by another school to teach, and I taught in that school for around 3 years, I guess. 3 more years, 3.5. After I started tutoring, after I had like 4 years of teaching, 3 or 4, I'm never sure, but I think it was 3 years later, I started tutoring for one of my students in the course. I remember that her mom called me, "Hey Emilio," I said, "Hi. So Victor really likes your classes, and I was wondering if you gave private lessons too." And I answered, "Yes, I do," but I never did. But I answered, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Great. How how much do you? How much is it for the hour?" And so I thought, I make 15 reais teaching for the whole group here. So I said 30 reais. I made it like twice as much. And she said, "Oh, that's great. So we're gonna start." And that's how it happened. I That's how I started tutoring. I had no intention. Someone came to me, but I started noticing differences throughout the time. For 1 year, I taught both in an English course and also as a tutor. And so in that year I could compare a lot. And after that year, when I moved to Floripa, Florianopolis is my hometown. Not my hometown. Florianopolis is the city in which I live in right now. I so after I moved here, I've only been teaching private lessons or as a tutor. So today we're gonna talk about the differences between these two things. So I organized our webinar today with two columns, okay? Courses and tutoring. And I divided in the structure of like the school and the things you need to have, the differences between of teaching and the differences for the student, and then final conclusions, okay? So throughout this webinar, I'm going to be talking to you about differences for courses, between courses and tutoring in all of these aspects, okay? So let's begin by the structure. Simple thing about the structure. When you work for a school, you have the structure of the school pretty much. When you work as a tutor, you don't have a physical structure, and that is a big advantage in some aspects, and some it's not. For example, when you work for a course, you have the classroom, and you teach in the classroom. You teach your students in the classroom. You have the board. You have they're sitting on their desks. They're sitting at their desks, and it's something that makes things easier in a certain way, because you just have to always go to that school and you go there and you teach them. But at the same time, it kind of limits you because you have to be there standing in front of them, in front of the board. Meanwhile, when you are a tutor, the world is your classroom. That's my slogan for my tutoring lessons. The world is our classroom. And this is so true. You can teach anywhere you want. Anywhere? Anywhere. But anywhere? Yes, anywhere. I've taught in a lot of different places, and you know that because that's something I always say. And the fun thing is that you don't need to teach it in the same place. You can, with the same student, you can have classes in a lot of different places and have different stimulus, and it's according to their needs and it's according to their will too. So it's great. You can schedule a class in a coffee shop. You can go to a restaurant. You can go walk in a park. You can have classes at the beach. It's happened to me once, not once, more than once actually, because here in Florianopolis we have a lot of beaches. So you get to go to all of these nice places with your students. It's very nice. Another thing, and that is, let me just get organized with my here. So another thing is that you have hierarchy. No, is that you have a support team in your course. For example, you have the sales team. When you teach for an English course, you're only responsible for going in the classroom and teaching your students, explaining them the content. Meanwhile, if you are a tutor, you are the whole team. Because the sales team, the ones responsible for getting new students, when you're in a course, that's not you. You're only responsible for teaching. But when you're a tutor, you are responsible for getting new students too. You are responsible for talking to your students' parents if they're kids. You don't have the support team. You don't have the cleaning lady or the cleaning gentleman, or you don't have the secretary that schedules everything and fits all of your time to your and fits your schedule to the student's schedule. You're responsible for that. That means you're more free, but that means you have more tasks than just teaching. But that's actually nice. Another thing, something I really liked in the courses are the events. When you teach in an English course, you just go to the events and you work there. Sometimes it's Halloween parties, sometimes it's cooking classes, sometimes it's typical parties from your home country. I don't know which they are. But, anyways, um, this is something I had a lot of fun doing. I always loved to have a lot of fun and interact with the kids and make them laugh a lot and make them have fun. It's something that I always had a great time, and in these events, the food is really good. So yeah, I loved teaching for these teaching in I loved teaching in these events. They were really nice. Another, however, you are responsible for the events when you're working as a tutor. If you want, you can organize events. You can call all of your students and make movie night. You can go to a restaurant. You can create activities. But you have to create everything and you have to organize everything. You have to talk to people about the places and things like that. I personally don't do it as a tutor because it takes a lot of work, and I'm not this kind of person that likes to organize these things. I love participating in them, but as a tutor, I end up not doing it. I'm going. Sorry. Once again. I'm sorry for that. Anyways, another difference, and that's a very peculiar one, but I'm sure you will relate to that. In the English courses, you always have cookies. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. Usually they're not. But you have free cookies all the time. I used to teach a lot Saturday mornings, and Saturday mornings you always had like a big coffee machine and also a cookie jar, and it was really fun. It was really fun. I remember that students always came to get the cookies. Some of them like had the handful of cookies, some of them took two, but that was a good thing. And when you're a tutor, unfortunately, you don't have cookies unless you buy them. So usually no cookies. However, and this is something very interesting, sometimes when you teach the students in their place, they offer you very good food. Very good food. I always say that the best cake I ever had in my life was during an English session with a student, a tutoring session. She graduated in gastronomy, and she gave me a carrot cake, if I'm not wrong, and that was perfect. That was so good. Gabi, if you're seeing this, your cake is awesome. Great. So about the structure, these would be the differences, the main differences. Um, don't forget that if you're a tutor, the world is our classroom. Don't get stuck into an office or in a classroom, because that's a waste of potential for your English classes. This is so true. Students enjoy so much more going outdoors and breathing fresh air, having a walk, having a conversation, touching the vocabulary things. If you are teaching about food, go to the supermarket, make them touch the food, make them smell the food, go to a restaurant or something like that. It's so powerful. It's really powerful. So do it. Okay, let's go on. Now the differences a bit about the teaching side. For the teacher, what are the differences? Let's go through it. The first one is when you are teaching for courses, you are usually teaching groups. Meanwhile, when you are teaching as a tutor, you're usually teaching individuals. Let's make this bold. What is the difference between teaching for groups and individuals? Emilio, great question. Usually, for me, the main differences are the fact that you have to split your attention into 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 12 people, 15 people if the course is one of those that wants to get as many students as possible and doesn't care about the results. I'm sorry for that, but that's true. And when you're teaching as a tutor, you have one person. So you are going to, the whole hour is going to revolve around this student's needs. And that's great. That's something that, we're going to talk about this later. But anyways, so when you're teaching for groups, you have to split your attention. You have to take the best student and the student that has more difficulties and kind of like make an average and teach for the average students, because you cannot focus only in the one that has big difficulties, and you cannot focus on the best one, because otherwise the other ones will get behind. So that's another challenge for a teacher in a course. Meanwhile, when you're teaching the individual, you are just focusing on their student, on their English, right? Good. Another thing, when you're teaching for courses, the material is already there. However, when you're teaching as a tutor, you have to prepare the material you're using. When you're teaching as an English teacher for a course, you have usually everything prepared. You have the course book and the different levels, and you have the lesson, and the book explains to you everything you need to know in order to teach that lesson. When you are teaching let's do it like this. When you're teaching as a tutor, you have to come up with the material. You have to come up with the content that you're bringing your student. What is awesome about this is the fact that you're going to bring the material your student needs, and you're going to go in their pace. When you're following a course book, some students, they don't understand it so well, they get behind. Some students are advanced, they don't need that content right there. So, but you have nothing to do, you have to follow the schedule. When you're teaching private lessons, it goes according to your students' needs, and that is awesome. That's what boosts their English way more. So, very important characteristic. Another one, you have to, how can I say this? When you are teaching for courses, you have to pay, how can I explain that? How can I put that in words? You have a higher attention. And here you don't need to have such a high attention. And why? Why? Because when you're teaching and this is my opinion, but when you're teaching for a course, you have moments in which the students are going to be doing exercises, written exercises. You have moments in which students are going to be interacting with each other. You have moments in which the students are going to be listening to an audio or something like that. Meanwhile, when you work as a tutor, it's a lot of conversation, just you and the student. So you're paying attention to every detail. You have to focus twice. Also, when you're working for courses, but it's kind of different because this happens more often. But you have to focus twice, because you have to focus on the content of what they're saying, because it's usually a subject about, I don't know, a story they're telling you. So you have to focus on the story, but at the same time you're focusing on every structure they are speaking, because you want to help them as best as you can, as best as possible. So you end up focusing a lot more, because you talk more to your students and it's just you and them. So that makes a big difference. However, when you're teaching as a for a course, you don't need to pay. It's not that you don't need to pay so much attention, but you have more moments in which you can relax a little during the class. Of course, you pay a lot of attention, and when you have more students, you have to split your attention, like I said. But for a course, you can relax more than during your tutoring lesson. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about the differences for the student. I think there are two main differences for the student. Three, I would say. Yes. First, you have, when you're teaching for a course, let me just do this. Yes. You have a deeper relationship with the student. You have a deeper relationship with the student. Why? Because think about this with me. You spend 1 hour or 2 hours a week interacting with a person, like just you and them. And in this moment, you're going to talk about a lot of different things. Probably you're going to go to their house, you're going to go to their office, you're going to go to their favorite places. So you're entering their universe. So that creates a stronger connection with your student, and that is awesome. So you end up having a deeper relationship with the student. It's natural, it's amazing at the same time, because they become your friend. They become happy for your achievements, you become happy for theirs. It's really cool. It's really cool. However, your relationship is not so yeah, you have I would say a normal relationship with most of the students. You have a normal relationship with them. Student and teacher, you like them, they like you. And it's what I'm trying to say is that it's not that you cannot have a deeper relationship with the student during your hours working working for the course, but since you have a lot of students, it's not the same thing. So it ends up being deeper when you have a student, a private student. It's way deeper. And also something that calls a lot my attention is that the student learns faster. Think about this. You have one person paying attention to you, to everything you say, to every structure, to every pronunciations. Of course, you're not gonna correct all of them, but because you have to set your pace right and to respect the student, otherwise they will be terrified. Oh, I don't know anything, and they'll never show up again. So yeah, you know how it works. But the student ends up learning faster. You're kind of like their coach. You make their English boost a lot, and it's awesome. And it usually takes longer to learn when you're working for a course. when you're working for a course. No, when you're studying at the course. Does it mean you're not gonna learn? No, it means you are going to learn, but it will take longer. Of course, some students they are different. I'm talking about the average student, okay? Because some students they learn faster because they do a lot of things while they're home. That I was one of them. I When I was a student in an English course, the classes helped me a lot. But since I loved English and I wanted to learn more and more, I would go after a lot of content out of my classroom, and that helped me a lot. I was very I was a fast learner, but because of the hours I put in to study, because I loved it. English was fun for me. It wasn't an obligation. Great. And for according to what I observed, students have more fun during a private lesson. Why? So there are different aspects in this one. Because, okay, when you are in a course, you can have a lot of fun because you can have a fun classroom. Can have nice classmates. You have the activities and the games of the book and things like that. The courses they are usually designed for students to have fun, but you're usually stuck in the book. You have to do the book exercises. You have to make the book games. And some of the students they don't like the game so much. And when you are working as a tutor, you have the opportunity to know what is fun for that person, because every student is a universe, and what is fun for that universe. Because some people they have fun riding their bikes. Some people they have fun making jokes. Some people they have fun talking about trips. Some people they have fun talking about their past. Some people have fun talking about video games. Some people have fun walking. Some people have fun watching something. Some people have fun playing video games. And when you're working as a tutor, you have the opportunity to know what is fun for that student, and you bring that to them. And that's something they usually won't have in an English course. So for me, for the student, these are the most important aspects. When you are studying with a tutor, you have a deeper relationship with them, you have a faster learning process, and you have more fun during your classes. Right? So, in order to finish my webinar for today, what are my final thoughts? Let me just bring my black dot closer here. What are my final thoughts? Tutoring usually is more challenging because it's your responsibility. You have to create the content, you have to bring the material, you have to go after new students. So it is more challenging. And not only that, but when you're teaching during the teaching hour, you have a person that can ask you whatever they feel like, and they're free to ask anything. Meanwhile, when they are in the course, they can ask you anything too, but they are usually going to ask questions related to the book, and if you have the lesson prepared, everything is fine. But when you're working as a tutor, they tend to ask you more questions, and that's more challenging, but at the same time, your English boosts a lot. Because you have every time new vocabulary, new things. It's challenging, but it's very nice, and it's very how can I say? It's very good for your English too. Good. it is more challenging, but at the same time, it is more pleasant for you. Why is it more pleasant, Emilio? Because you have a better connection with the student. You have different environments every day. You have different subjects to talk about. You don't have to be in the same place every day and teach the same lesson from the same book more than once sometimes, which is not so nice, at least for me. And this is something that for me is way more pleasant. That's why nowadays I only work as a tutor. Another thing, and this is very interesting and one of the best aspects for sure, that is you make more money. Your work hour is way more valued when you work as an English tutor. Why is that? That's a good question. Why is a tutor more valued than a person that teaches for courses? Think about this. The student is hiring you for a personalized service. They want you to teach them according to their needs and nobody else's. Meanwhile, when you're in a course, you have a general content for all of the students at the same time. It's not personalized. Another thing that makes you prepare the lessons and prepare the material and the content you're going to bring to them. So that's an extra time you invest in that student, so that makes your time more valued. You get a better work hour, you get paid better. And throughout the whole process, you end up also generating more value to your student. If you can see up here, one of the aspects is that the student learns faster. So if they learn faster, they're making a higher investment, but in a shorter amount of time. So they won't need to pay for 5 years an English course to get to graduate. I would say they will take 2, 3 years, 4 years, depends on the student, of course. But they are paying you to teach them more so that they learn faster. So it's a higher value they're getting, so they're paying more for that. And you get more for that too. Also, with the money the students pay, the courses, the course needs to pay for the cookies, the course needs to pay for electricity, the course needs to pay rent, the course needs to pay their employees, the secretary, the support team. So you get a share of that, which is usually not a high share, you know how it works, at least in Brazil. And since it is more challenging and you have to do more things, you end up, and you are your own structure, you are your own course, you end up getting a higher percentage of what the student is paying you, almost 100% if you think about it. Okay, you have commuting expenses, maybe you have some material expenses, but you end up getting a way higher percentage of what the student pays you. And also, it means that they are getting the transformation they want, they are getting the speaking English, that's probably their goal, way faster. So that's what makes your work hour much more valued. It gets 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times higher than paying for a course, than working for a course. Then the money you make paying for come on, Emilio, it gets 5 times higher the money you make working for a course. But to finish here, I want to make something clear. I have nothing against English courses. I think they are okay. They might work for some teachers and they might work for some students. Some students might prefer that. But for me and for a lot of people, I see more value in working and learning from a tutor than through an English course. Okay? So my friends, that's it for today. I hope you had a great time, as much as I did making this webinar. And I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you later.